Welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment and Member of Parliament for Mariaqua, Sinclair Jimmy Prince, was today admitted to the Milton Cater Memorial Hospital for observation. This was announced earlier today in a news release issued by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, which reassures the public that Minister Prince is stable and is resting comfortably at the hospital. It was also noted that during Prince's hospitalization, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves will assume the function of Minister of Health. No further information was provided. However, the ministry said it welcomes prayers and well wishes to the minister and his family for a quick recovery. SVG has recorded its 11th COVID-19 related death. The latest victim is a 87-year-old male who the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, said died on April 26 while in isolation at the Argyle Isolation Facility. Meanwhile, 5 new COVID-19 positive cases were reported from 32 samples processed on April 25th, resulting in a positivity rate of 15.6%. Over the weekend, 10 new positive cases were reported. No new recoveries were recorded, leaving the number of total recoveries at 1,711. 122 cases are currently active and 11 persons with COVID-19 have died. 1,844 cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed in St. Vincent and the Grenadines since March 2020. The public is urged to continue to use masks, sanitize, physically distance and get vaccinated to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Meanwhile, on radio today, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves continues to urge persons to get tested for COVID-19, especially those in the evacuation shelters. He said recently 5 positive cases of COVID-19 were recorded from samples taken at an evacuation shelter in Stubbs, and persons have been refusing to get tested.
I was amazed to find out that when there's someone who you know was doing a karaoke who had some pre-existing condition, danced and fell and died. Person said that it was COVID, but it was not COVID. The person didn't die of COVID because the PCR test showed that the person didn't have COVID. But even while that rumor swirled and people in the particular shelter where this person died, it was amazing that people were there refusing to take the test. I'm not talking yet about vaccination, to take the test. We were seen at Stubbs 2 days ago. There are 5 persons at the shelter tested positive. 4 persons in the shelter and 1 who is not at the shelter all the time.
45,000 persons have been tested thus far for COVID-19 here in SVG. Prime Minister Gonsalves reminded persons of the harm that the virus can do to the body.
It is not an automatic death sentence, as almost automatic, like for instance Ebola and HIV and AIDS in the early period before they got the requisite medication to help to make persons with HIV and AIDS live a long time. But it can kill. And even though it doesn't kill you, COVID, it's a serious illness. It can debilitate you because there's something called long COVID. And Dr. Thompson and the other health specialists have been talking about this, and it's well researched, that it could affect your lungs, it could affect your heart, it could affect, in some cases, I'm told, even accelerate your your diabetes and can create difficulties even in relation to cancer.
Prime Minister Gonzalez continues to urge persons to take the COVID-19 vaccine, noting that thus far only 13% of the population has been vaccinated.
That some persons have some queries about the AstraZeneca vaccine. But all the scientific reports would tell you with crystal clarity that the risks, any risks involved with AstraZeneca are minimal and the benefits are huge. For any of these vaccines, they reduce the markedly transmission. They reduce the possibility very significantly of you getting seriously ill.
The government aims to have at least 70% of the population vaccinated. Turning our attention now to the La Soufrière volcano, the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, earlier today issued a warning about the potential danger in the red and orange zones due to mud flows within a river system. In a news release, NEMO said, according to information received from the scientists at the Belmont Volcano Observatory, there were lava flows within the river system in the red and orange volcano hazard zones from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. today. Lahars are a dense mixture of ash and water and usually occurs during heavy rain, which creates mud flow that destroys everything in its path as it rushes down the volcano's slopes faster than a river. NEMO said the lahars can pose a danger to persons visiting the red and orange zones, and as a result of this, the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force will be restricting persons traveling into the red and orange hazard zones. NEMO said the forecast received from the SVG Met Service indicated that occasional showers are expected to continue during the course of the day and from late Wednesday into the end of the week. Residents and motorists are therefore asked to remain on the alert due to rain-soaked ash and possible poor visibility due to volcanic ash. Meanwhile, NEMO is urging persons to desist from visiting the red and orange volcano hazard zones due to the potential danger of the mud flows. NEMO Director Michel Forbes told SVG-TV News today that to preserve human life, they have implemented additional measures to keep persons out of these zones as much as possible, including the issuance of passes to persons wishing to go into these communities.
We started having some rain today, and we actually have in Spring Village in particular and South Rivers, we probably would have had close to an inch of rain for the day, and we have seen the mud flows coming down, and those are dangerous. So we're not going to be too hurried to allow persons back actually into the red zones. We're going to restrict it a little bit more once we have rainy conditions, because we don't want people to be caught in these flows. There's a lot of ash in the mountain, there's a lot of ash to come down, and they're going to come as a mud flow, so we don't want that to happen. So beginning today, we're in close contact with the Met Office. They've already indicated what we can expect today into Wednesday, and we'll be restricting a bit of more of persons entering those zones because of a little bit more dangerous conditions of the ash flowing down the hills and the waterways.
Forbes said that passes will be limited mainly to farmers who will enter the zone at their own risk.
Entering the red zone over the Rabica River, even though you get a pass, we are issuing limited passes to persons, mainly who farmers, etc., who want to go in and feed their animals, but they're really doing it at their own risk. But it's better if they go in groups, have contact with us, we are in contact with the scientists, so we can alert them of anything that is pending. So we don't want persons to just go willy-nilly into the red zone, because there are still dangers, and especially now that we have had some rain today, we don't know what is going to happen over the next few days. So we're asking persons to be cautious. Those who are going in shouldn't be going in without being cleared by us to go in, and we have asked the police to restrict a bit on persons.
Seismologist monitoring La Soufrière volcano, Dr. Roderick Stewart, who went up to the summit of the volcano yesterday on an observation flight in a fixed-wing aircraft, said on radio today that the visibility was poor, with clouds blocking a clear view of the crater for much of the time.
The other thing to report is that we did an observation flight yesterday in a fixed-wing aircraft. Conditions were not very good when we were up there. It was very cloudy, but we got some views of the crater. We got some photographs, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of a dome at the moment. We did see a lot of steaming. There's at least 2 vents that are there. We think we saw a spine as well. But we'll be continuing to pick up information on this as we go by and try and work out what's happening inside the crater. Maybe, Richie, you want to say something about it?
Dr. Stewart said that there was a lahar or mud flow signal observed at the eastern side of the volcano last night and that the seismic activities continue to be low.
In terms of earthquake activity, it's been very quiet. We've been having occasional volcano tectonics, occasional long-period earthquakes, no sign of tremor. So it's very, very quiet. The problem we've got is trying to compare this to before the explosions happened. Because in December, January, February, when we were having very gentle dome growth, the only signals we saw then were recorded on a station near the summit. Now that station's being destroyed by the eruption. So we don't know if those small events are occurring at the moment. But ignoring that, we're not having any of the events that we've been seeing throughout this explosion series. So that's a good point. It shows that the volcano's not got a lot of stress inside it. Last night we recorded another signal from a lahar on, we think, the eastern side of the volcano. We expect to record these from time to time.
Lead monitoring scientist Dr. Richard Robertson, who was also part of the observation team to visit the summit yesterday, described the changes in appearance at the volcano. He noted that there is a lot of steaming coming out from the crater where the 2 domes used to be.
There's a part of it where you have a large mass of rock that sticks up. We call it a spine. It looks like a black pillar that's up towards the northwestern side. And then on sort of the northern side, if you're looking across to the northern side of the crater, you can have a lot of steaming in some areas where you have some probably remnants of the 1979 dome. But essentially what you have is a big open crater in the middle of a pre-existing crater. You wouldn't see any domes. What you have is a crater with lots of ash and lots of loose material around. And the edge of one of the craters is so high that it actually comes up to the level of the pre-existing crater rim. That in the old days you used to have to take a rope to go down. Now you could just walk all the way around and get into the crater, which is it's interesting if it actually ends up being like that, because it means that you're probably going to have more visitors than you would like up there.
The number of evacuees in the government-designated shelters continues to increase 2 weeks after La Soufrière volcano erupted explosively. Head of NEMO Michel Forbes shared this information with SVG-TV News today in a telephone interview.
In a trend where persons are now moving from the private homes into the emergency shelters. We still have about 85 activated throughout between Barley on the west or southwest to North Union on the eastern side. We have total number of persons in shelters at the moment is 4,430, and that was from last night. And we have so far captured another 1,618 families living in private homes. That's at about 6,790 persons in private homes. So far we have calculated based on persons who have registered with us and who we have found in the community, 13,303 persons displaced so far from our data, and we still continue to tidy up that data.
Forbes also shared that amidst the operations at the government shelters, ensuring a COVID-19 free environment continues to be a challenge. She appealed to all evacuees in shelters to follow the COVID-19 protocols, which include mask wearing.
Some of the things that we challenge, people don't want to wear their mask within the shelter environment, and that's part of our protocol. We're having some challenges with that. And just asking persons to be compliant in terms of the COVID-19 protocols, at least wear your mask and do the necessary. Of course, it's not your home, so you don't have much privacy. So it takes persons a while to adjust to that.
While there were some challenges when their operations commenced, Forbes said many kinks have been ironed out and took the time to thank the various shelter managers, volunteers and civil servants who have given their time and service to the humanitarian needs on the ground. And many shelters have counselors who are providing psychosocial support to evacuees. Christine Martin is a counselor at the Lomans Anglican School shelter, and she has been working with more than 70 evacuees to help them feel at home in a new environment.
One of the things we're trying to do is get them to focus in the now and not too much about what happened, because there's nothing they could do right now. So whenever we meet and chat, I always check to see where their level are at, and so far they've been doing good, coping, settled, they're calm. They do take part in quite a few activities, and most of them are elderly as well, so they need a rest, and all that is being provided. The men would have their time of dominoes and cards. I see them cleaning up and sweeping up. Some may even assist in the kitchen, so most of them are settling in. They made.
And the number of male evacuees sheltering at the Bookament Government School are concerned about their livelihood and told SVG-TV News that they have started looking for a job as they have their families to maintain.
So if I can seek any thing, I feel like someone to occupy myself or work and can have family too. So I don't know. We still in hope. Thank God for life. People, but it's who interested to help we. So we're still looking on to make it meet.
I got work, I got something to do. I got to sit down and pay a couple of months and look at to do. I got something to do to help myself. Yeah, I got children too, something to help myself too.
On Friday, members from the Nazarene Church distributed more than 150 hampers to the evacuees at different government shelters.
Do 50 here, about 50. We want to do, I believe it's 25 men, 25 women, and then give some other supplies, water and other things to the shelter manager to store and distribute as we go along. Then we'll go back and we'll visit other shelters. We plan to go to Dorsetshire Hill today, CW Prescott, maybe the St. Vincent Grams, different places. So we will give out, I believe right now we have stocked up 150 packages to give out. We'll go back to the storeroom, pack more, and go again.
On Friday, April 17, 2021, 3 local fishermen headed by the president of the SVG Fisher Folk Association traveled to neighboring St. Lucia to collect relief items for the fisher folk affected by the eruption of La Soufrière volcano. On their journey back to SVG the following day, the boat they were traveling with sank and all of the relief supplies were lost. After 3 hours struggling for their life at sea, the men were rescued by a fishing boat from St. Lucia. They are now back home and are in need of relief supplies. Larissa Pugsley-Kidd tells us more in this report.
Starting off in a position to lend relief support to their colleagues, the rescued fishermen are now in need of relief. President of the Fisher Folk Association, Winsbert Harry, and 2 other fishermen received burns about their body and are not in a position to fish anytime soon. The fishermen had already collected relief items worth more than 30,000 EC dollars from the Goodwill Fishermen's Cooperative Fisherfolk in St. Lucia. Harry said they were due back home on the said day they went to St. Lucia. However, they decided against traveling in the dark and opted to leave the following day. He said more than an hour after leaving St. Lucia, the boat they were traveling with began to experience some problems, and the situation went quickly from bad to worse.
When we go to the cabin, we see that water, then the bilge pump wasn't pumping out the water, so we started to encounter difficulty at sea, so we decided that we will try to head back to St. Lucia, but on our way trying to head back to St. Lucia, the problem becomes more problematic and more worse. and eventually the boat sank.
Harry, who has encountered near-death situations at sea twice before, said he used his experience to help save his colleagues and his life.
From my previous experience, I said, well, we will have to use the gas cylinders that was on board to make life raft, because although you have the life jacket, you need something to rest on, you need something to hold on pan.
The burns to his body came from gasoline.
So swimming with that pain is not easy. Swimming with gas burning your skin and in the seawater, it's just swimming with tears in your eye, and it was not a very nice experience swimming on gas, and my skin is still, when I get home and I sit down, I just feel my body start to like somebody threw hot water upon me, the steam coming out of my body, and I see my skin just start to shell off, so I had to seek medical attention.
The other fishermen, both Captain Mac Clement St. Rose and Kafu Guy, were unable to speak to us on camera as they were too emotional and traumatized to do so. The captain, however, noted that it is a huge loss, especially during this difficult time. Harry said they're all in need of relief support.
Innocently Rose, he lose his boat, he loses his engine. My skin is properly burned. Mr. Guy, he have burns on his skin, and we all have our family to take care of, and now that our daily income is now gone from us, so I could say we still appealing for some help as well to see how best we could get the assistance to help support our families as well too.
Harry noted that he will continue to work on behalf of the displaced fisherfolk in SVG and encouraged all fishermen to prioritize safety at sea at all times. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pogsley-Kidd.
The tremendous outpouring of support for St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the humanitarian needs on the ground has seen the establishment of mobile storage units to store relief supplies. Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, Michel Forbes, told SVGTV News today via a telephone interview that the decommissioned E.T. Joshua Airport is being used to house the storage units as the present warehouses has reached capacity.
Have quite a bit of relief items coming into the country, and we have set up additional warehouses because we had our main warehouse was at Camden Park, and that has been exceeded. We are setting up now a mobile storage unit at Annesville, the old Joshua Airport site, that we have established with the support of the international agencies and regional agencies such as CIDEMA, the World Food Program, all under the regional response mechanism. So we have the RSS supporting member states, and also the CARICOM disaster relief. All the relief that comes into the country will be taken there, recorded, documented. We're running a big logistics support system where we'll be able to document everything that comes into the country and where it goes to.
While the needs of Nemo and by extension the evacuees continue to change, Forbes highlighted a few key supplies that persons can donate if they wish to do so. She noted that there will be some restrictions on water which have been provided abundantly and while still necessary will be moderated.
We still have some needs for food. We're going to have to keep it for a while. We have quite a bit of water. We would not say it too that we don't need water, but we have to be mindful of what is coming in to really restrict it a bit. These needs tend to change over a period of time. For example, one of our greatest needs now is what we call a portable potties, which is temporary toilet. That's a big need now. We need to have some at the emergency shelters as people start to clean up things like water hose and detergent, generators, things for cleaning up, and shovels, wheelbarrows. Still need the containers in terms of where we can store stuff. Still some need for some mattresses because some persons will not be able to use the mattresses again. And as people move about, you will still need to have that kind of bedding for persons. Water bladders, the collapsible water bladders, and those things.
As partnership builds between volunteer groups and NEMO to meet the needs of those displaced, Forbes gave a review of the protocols in place for the distribution of food and supplies to the shelters, including why it is important for groups and individuals to notify NEMO of their intentions in order to minimize wastage, the insufficient use of resources, and a potential spread of COVID-19.
That we want your supplies, we don't. We have a donations line. You just give us a call and say, hey, I want to help by feeding this shelter. But we can tell you, okay, why not do it next week instead of this week? Because this week we may have been covered, say, by the Adventist disaster relief in terms of food. Next week we may not have anyone saying that they're supporting the shelter. That's all we want. Just a bit of coordination. You're telling us what you can do and we point you in that direction. There are donors who are clear on where they want to go. And we know we facilitate it as much as possible. It's just that so we don't have one shelter having everything where some shelters may not have. And you know, we have double dipping, and sometimes one person, a shelter is being fed by one agency and another, and somebody else turn up with food. We don't want wastage.
The NEMO director also made it clear that contrary to popular belief, persons can have their emergency relief supplies sent directly to them and not through NEMO.
And this one thing I want to raise, you can bring your own emergency supplies in your name. You don't have to bring them to NEMO. In the first phase of an emergency, things can be quite hectic, so we don't normally accept personal packages for anyone or send personal packages to everyone. But what we have found is that persons have packed things within NEMO supplies, and we don't take it. Once it's labeled and everything, we leave it at the port for you, we leave it at the customs for you, so you can actually go and collect it. But you can bring in your own supplies, emergency relief supplies on your own to whoever you want. You just have to apply it to the Ministry of Finance for the duty-free concession.
The government of Canada has pledged 440,000 Canadian dollars to support the immediate humanitarian needs in SVG. Canada's High Commissioner, Her Excellency Lillian Chatterjee, called into this morning's program on NBC Radio, hosted by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, to outline the different areas in which the money will be spent. She said 250,000 will go towards the World's Food Program, while 170,000 will be distributed to other organizations here in SVG.
Of which 250,000 will go to the World Food Program and 190,000 will go to St. Vincent and Grenadines organizations. Three of them, Rapid Relief Team SVG, the World Pediatric Project Caribbean, and the SVG Red Cross through the International Federation of Red Cross. And that is to help to focus on the basic needs of displaced people, you know, to provide food, hygiene supplies, drinking water, clothes, shoes, and also to address some of the health concerns, respiratory supplies like nebulizers, ventilators, air purifiers, oxygen tanks, and other medical needs. And Prime Minister, I have to say, I have a lump in my throat.
Her Excellency said that it is broken-hearted to see that agriculture in the red and orange zones have been destroyed, noting that the Richmond Vale Academy, a backyard gardening project, which was also affected, was one of the projects that they have funded over the years.
A virtual tour of their project. They were producing home gardens in Chateau Bel Air, Fitzhughes, Rose Hall, Spring Village, and they were helping people develop these home gardens to for themselves. And when I see the videos, I'm so brokenhearted to think that all of that must have been destroyed. I did that virtual tour with Stina Herberg, and I was so impressed with their dedication and their initiative, and I just feel so sad to see what has happened and the impact that this volcano has wreaked, not just for that project, but for the citizens, and I'm in awe of Vincentians.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves expressed gratitude to the Canadian government for the financial support and said that he is looking for continued partnership in the recovery and reconstruction phase.
And the organizations which you have chosen to provide the $440,000 Canadian to, certainly the public would know that the World Pediatric Project is a very important project, and I'm glad they are getting some funding from you. And the World Food Program is here with us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, working, helping us with some of the coordination, in fact all the UN agencies. So we're very grateful for the assistance to those institutions which do good work for the people, which are doing good work for the people. I want everybody to realize, to whom I'm speaking, that we in the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we ask governments to support in this humanitarian phase.
Meanwhile, the United Kingdom has announced a further £550,000 sterling to the volcano relief efforts here in SVG. The UK has so far contributed close to £1 million in support to SVG delivered through the World Food Programme. A news release said the funds will help families meet their essential needs for 3 months, and the contribution will go to the World Food Programme in response to a UN appeal. The AFIA Foundation, JetBlue, and the Commission of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States are said to be working together to deliver much-needed relief supplies to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The first in a series of shipments arrived in St. Lucia on Friday via JetBlue for immediate onward shipment to St. Vincent. The relief supplies include urgently needed items such as face masks, face shields, blankets, gloves, isolation gowns, and adult diapers. Speaking from the OECS Commission in St. Lucia, Director General Dr. Didicus Jules thanked the organizations for their generous contributions and collaboration to get the supplies to St. Vincent.
OECS Commission would like to express its sincerest appreciation to the AFIA Foundation for sending $206,000 worth of medical supplies that include adult pampers and face masks and PPE gear, and particularly masks that might be helping people with respiratory problems in the face of the ash in the air to manage this situation. We are particularly grateful to JetBlue for having